Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, the channel dedicated to Sigmar, and in this video I am very happy to say that this is going to be my Why Play LUMINETH REALM-LORDS video for my channel. So what I also want to say is that we are using the, not like new as it's like brand new on the market, but new for me, the OBS setup, so hopefully that's going to work fine. Of course we can't edit halfway through or anything, but the more exciting part of this video is that I have got Ethan from my Discord joining me as a person who is a big fan of the LUMINETH REALM-LORDS. So Ethan, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. So what I would like to say with that is Ethan is someone I got chatting to a couple of weeks ago who joined my Discord, and then he says he likes the LUMINETH REALM-LORDS a lot, and I thought why not include him for the Why Play video. So if you guys are a fan of a certain army, Bone Reapers for example, or any of the other sort of more like sub-allegiances now for the armies, and you feel like you would like to join in on the channel, just join the Discord and we'll get chatting. So okay, the point of this video, in case you haven't seen one of my Why Play army videos before, is essentially we're going to go over the strengths and weaknesses of this army and try to really drill down to the core to find out if this is an army that you would like to play or collect yourself, or alternatively find out maybe this isn't the army for you and you would rather do another army. And then the third thing is that in case you happen to have bought these guys, or let's say you've got that big box set that you bought, you know, just in the moment when it came out, sort of in June, July time, you haven't got around to building and paying it yet, hopefully this will give you some motivation to do that. Okay, so the first thing we are going to talk about is going to be the lore. So Ethan, do you want to tell us a little bit about the lore for these guys, or would you like me to do it?
I can start.
Fantastic.
So, the Lumineth were created by Teclis and Tyrion, obviously putting souls out of the trapped Slaanesh, and these elves were formed to sort of reflect the finer points of elven culture, being great warriors and artisans. So in this realm, they flourished, and it was going brilliantly until they found the powers of the Realmstone, Aether Quartz, which initially heightened their capabilities, both martial and artwork. And they furthered their societies by mining this, and it got to a sort of scary point, and they were sort of competing over it and competing for the greatest art, and it sort of triggered a Cold War equivalent situation where each great nation rushed to create the greatest society, both aesthetically and militarily.
Yeah, and it's really interesting as well, because obviously these guys come from High-ish, the realm of light, and their Aether Quartz, as you know, grey as a setting as Age of Sigmar or 40k even is, you tend to try to always find the good guys and the bad guys, but really when you talk about these Aether Quartz, it doesn't actually sound too much different to like Warpstone or something like that, you know, like the solid form of chaos, what the Scabula were after, which is quite interesting. And like you said, there was this massive Cold War of them trying to build up, you know, these doomsday weapons and everything else, and also build upon their society. And one day, because of the whispers of chaos coming through to them, sort of tempted each power within the LUMINETH REALM-LORDS to one by one declare war on each other, and made them make this almost, or potentially, best civilization the mortal realms have ever seen really destroy itself until there was only a few survivors. Is it the spot? I know one of the Spirefall. I couldn't remember the term of the other one, but Spirefall was what I remembered. Yeah, so there was that, and then I think
it really highlights the sort of tendency to self-destruction that elven fantasy provokes, which I really like. Is that arrogance, that sense of the self and bettering the self to beat other people, and this just caused them to tear each other apart. And at this point, Teclis and Tyrion are both sort of helping Sigmar out. They're not really keeping a close eye on what's happening, and so they're missing this huge sort of underbelly stirring and exploding.
Yeah, that's it. And it's very true what you say, like the arrogance of the elves, because like if you're coming from, let's say, 40k, it's kind of like the Eldar, the Eldari, I think they're called now. Like, not that their arrogance birthed the Chaos God Slanesh, but basically because of their arrogance, it destroyed their race to a few remaining survivors.
It's quite parallel.
Yeah, it's very similar, and you can see the connection there. And not like, I don't feel like, oh, well, they, it's not very imaginative. I really like that aspect, and I think that's very cool. And then with the Lumineth Realm-Lords, when eventually they were like, okay, as you imagine like a post-apocalyptic world, and let's say the sides stop fighting each other because there's only like, I don't know, 10% of the population left. It's like, okay, we really should stop fighting and rebuild our civilization. And then that is when I think Teclis helped them out with that. And that is why the Lumineth Realm-Lords have become quite sort of like isolated due to their own decision-making to focus on the realm of Haish and rebuilding their society rather than helping out in the Realm Gate Wars or anything else. So if you're wondering when these new races come out for Age of Sigmar, going like, oh, the Lumineth Realm-Lords, we've only just heard about them. Where have they been all this time? They have generally just been in Haish, which we haven't known too much about, and that's why we haven't seen them much until now.
Yeah, they're sort of sorting out their own problems. They allowed a lot of Slanesh demons to come through rifts created by their great weapons.
Yeah.
The one thing, though, about the sort of arrogance to destruction that AOS does really nicely for the Lumineth is the sense of redemption. You don't really get that with the Eldar. The Eldar are just doomed, and they're slowly getting towards the number 0. But Lumineth have this sense of redeeming Haish and going to other sort of places and ridding chaos, and hopefully in the future we'll see more of the redemption of the land and the cleansing of Slanesh from it.
That, I mean, as a avid Slanesh fan, I hate that idea, but yes, I think that would be very cool. But yeah, and what I would also say with that is the Lumineth Realm-Lords. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't read the battle tome, so it might be in there and I might be missing something. But as they do say, like a lot of them were destroyed in this massive civil war. It doesn't say like, but only a handful remain or something. They're not that limited. Like, there's still a lot of Lumineth Realm-Lords out there, but it's only a small fraction of what there were. Like you say, they're not counting down to the number 0, as the Eldar are. And
they're the solid force, I think. They're growing in power and number, but there's also another sort of interesting dynamic that they're actually getting addicted to their new sense of spirituality, and that the elves are they have this one big sort of flaw that they get obsessed over one sense of direction. So although Teclis has brought them away from that being their arrogance, they are starting to double down on this sense of spirituality.
Yes, and just to bring in like the start there of like the spirituality. Basically, when Teclis saw them and was like, "Okay, guys, you've been destroying each other for enough now. You're basically nearly going to wipe yourselves out." What he did is he, I think it was like the Moon of Haish. He managed to persuade.
Kalana.
What's the name?
Kalana, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, sounds something like that from memory. And persuade basically that to kind of be linked to the Lumineth. So then that means that the Lumineth are really, really linked to the to their realm itself in Haish. It's not like the Lumineth Realm-Lords, as in they're the most powerful race in that realm, i.e. they planted a flag and declared themselves the Lord. No, this isn't colonial days. This is actually because they are spiritually linked to basically the whole elements of the realm, aren't they? That's why you see like a lot of these cow models, for example, what I've got on the screen now. That's why there's things like this.
The cow models are explained, I think, by the Longhorn, which is a race of bull-like creature that's immortal and lives among the mountains. And when these sort of the stone faction is tested, they look at this race as the perfect embodiment of the connection between the mountain and the beast.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool, and it's also so when the Lumineths go to fight, it's not just mortals and creatures and stuff fighting on their side. It's actually the power of a realm, which is
the
makes them
realm
quite
fighting
unique.
with them.
Yeah,
which is so cool.
And that's where you also, when you were talking about like purging like actual corruption from the land and stuff, where it can come into. And just want to say one more thing before we move on from the lore. Is the are they just trying to remember? Mine's gone blank for a second. Aether quarks, is that what they're called?
Aether quarks. Yeah. So the Aether quarks is the original
Yeah.
sort of corrupting force of the realm. Once the elves sort of attuned to the land and attuned to the idea of restraint, they rid themselves of that arrogance. They could use the Aether quartz as a means of empowering themselves, but not to an excessive degree, just to achieve their goals of peace and to remove corruption.
Yeah, and there's one of the side effects about the Aether quarks is that it starts to strip away not their humanity, but like their identity a little bit.
Yeah, it draws from their emotions once it loses its power.
Yeah, but unlike the Stormcast, who have a similar thing of when they get reforged, they lose what was once them. And they see that as a bad thing, and they don't want that to happen. The Lumineth are kind of like, well, Slaanesh feeds on mass emotions and everything, so if we have less of that, that's quite good. And by taking emotions out of equations, your decision making can be more can be cold-blooded, but it can be more precise, I suppose. So that's why they like the disciplined ranks and everything else, because it does play a part in the Aether quarks. Is there any?
As well as this, the Cathalar are great at sort of manipulating emotion, which is a great skill to have when fighting against Slaanesh, because of course that powers Slaanesh up.
Yes, like it's really good, and it just shows how a new army can tie into already the existing lore. So is there?
They fit nicely.
Exactly. And the only other thing I just want to say that I thought was interesting when I read a bit about their lore is that Teclis actually saw the Necrocrake coming, so he got the Lumineth to build like these magical towers to basically be like a shield against this massive explosion of death magic from Shaiish. And where it did protect the Lumineth from all of the basically nasty night haunts and everything else, the endless spells still managed to break through. So it's quite.
Yeah, I mean the realm's so magical that endless spells were always going to, I think, crash through from that explosion.
Exactly. Cool. Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to say about the lore? Because what I will say, guys, is that at some point on the channel, I do plan to review every single army as hugely as in depth as, for example, what's on at the moment with the Slaves of Darkness. So the point of this video is we're just going to do like a summary of it, just so you get enough to make you want to dip your toe into it, essentially.
I think it is worth mentioning the Great Nations as it is reflected in their rules. So
fair enough. The
Liatha, I think, or Eliatha, who are masters of sort of creating doubles, right? So almost like a mitosis thing. They can form one elf into two, and that originally created a lot of problems because they did it excessively and created sort of horrible mirror legions. But Teclis limited that to 2 people and used it as a means of advantage, not a means of excess. So that's that's one of the first Great Nations. The next one I think is Sayar, which the main miners of Aether Quartz are the main sort of users of Aether Quartz, especially because Tyrion asked, guys, okay, it's great that you've gone spiritual, but there's still lots of Slaanesh here, we need a fighting force, so the Sayar continue to mine the Aether Quartz in order to provide that for their armies.
Cool.
Yometrica are this original stone legions, they're the ones who properly doubled down into the bull aesthetic.
They're literally the ones I got on the screen now, like the Stone Guard and stuff.
Yeah, those fit into the Yometrica very well. And then you have the Zytrek, which commit themselves, I think, to the lore, to the magic of the realm.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's these, and I imagine they turn into sub-allegiances and stuff, don't they?
Yeah,
like
they do. Yes, they transition nicely.
So you got I don't know, if you're Slaves of Darkness, you got your damn legions. If you're Legions of Nagash, you obviously got your legions there. If you're Idnef, you got your like enclaves, I think it's called, Daughters of Cain, temples, all these sort of things. That's their one, which is quite cool. And obviously, I don't think we've actually mentioned this bit, is that the Lumineth Realm-Lords are basically the closest thing we've got at the moment, and more than likely going to ever get to the pointy elves, being the high elves of the world that was. Like, you can see strong connections there.
These are the transition into AOS, I think, the high elves.
Yeah, it's like when I was reading through bits of their lore and stuff, basically where the kingdoms are of the Lumineth, it seems like they all used to be connected on like one big continent, and then it got shattered into lots of different islands. And it kind of reminds me a little bit like Ulf 1. And I know like Ulf 1 was like one big island, like one big, horseshoe, if you like. But with like little splinter, but like...
It does look like that.
Yeah, it does, like... And I haven't seen a picture of it, but like when I just like read the lore, I was like, this is reminding me a lot like this. Not in a bad way, it's cool. And it goes nicely with their like isolation style.
True.
And I know, like I said, I just want to do a summary, and we've been talking for ages now. But what I also just want to say, fun, it is good. Is that the reason? If you look at these guys, why can they only ally with the? Okay, there's two things I want to say. Basically, these are the favourite child of Teclis. Teclis had Fazwellware, 2 creations. First being the Untitled Deep King, where he went, don't like them. Don't like them. What do we do? Ethnic cleansing, apparently. But the Deep King managed to get away. And then he had these guys, and it's like, yep, these are my favourite. It's like the Faramir and Boromir story. So if you would rather be more like Boromir, this is kind of your army. And then the only other thing I want to say, so that was what I thought off the top of my head, but the thing I did mean to say was, so if you look at the alliances or allies they can have in an army, the LUMINETH REALM-LORDS, it's only Ardeneth Deepkin. Personally, don't really understand that bit because they hate each other. But what I will say is why they can't ally with the others, unless they can ally with Stormcast, can't exactly remember. But unless they can ally with the reason why they can't ally with the others is because basically most of the other Order races don't like these guys because they hid away for ages. They didn't help out when they needed. They came really late to try and purge chaos. And they're really arrogant as hell, thinking they are the superior race, despite the fact that their superiority made them slaughter each other to nearly the last.
Yeah, despite their obvious flaws.
Yeah, despite their, it's like their civilization is the best, despite the fact that the flaw of the civilization made it nearly destroy itself. Which is, I just think that's important to mention. So yeah. Anyway, so kind of like High Elves. Right, okay, so with the overlong lore, but no, it's cool. It's nice to talk about these guys. I don't know if I'll get around to reviewing them properly on the channel for a while, so it's good that we did that. Right, so the things we want to talk about now is going to be the strengths of the army. So we're going to talk about the strengths off the table, so basically the hobby side, and then we're going to talk about the strengths on the table, and then we're going to, of course, talk about the weaknesses off the table and then on the table, because, we are honest here, and then we'll do a summary at the end. Okay, so for these strengths off the table, I want to say that the model range is, in my eyes, is very pretty, and they are very new models. Like, I know that's like a very obvious thing to say, but I feel like I can't not say that.
You have to mention it.
Yeah, like, and if you love that style of, like the High Elves that we talked about, this is really as close as you're going to get. And when you see them all ranked up and everything, like from what Games Workshop has released photos of, because there's not a lot of people who've got this army yet, as it's very new, and obviously how the world is right now with lockdown and stuff. But when you do see these, like, I don't know, just like ranks upon ranks of spearmen, followed up by the archers, so like ranks upon ranks of the wardens, followed up by the sentinels, it's just a timeless aesthetic, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like a very natural army and sort of high fantasy aesthetic.
Yeah, it's lovely, and this army also has a beautiful like color palette. Obviously, you can paint them however you want. You don't have to paint them on the box. I've seen many people paint in many different ways, but there's a lot open to you, isn't it? And especially if you like that sort of like Roman Greek or like sort of like ancient history sort of vibe. There's a lot that plays here too. Like, I can imagine like a lot of these being painted up like ancient Greeks or the like a Roman color scheme.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen one color scheme. I think it's for one of the Great Nations. I can't remember which, but it's this auburn sort of warm red color scheme, and it just looks brilliant on these guys.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And like my mate Jamie is he's painting them like black armor, gold trim and lettering, and then like red and white like a cloth and stuff, and that looks like a much darker and everything, and it just looks great. It looks like Achilles and his men from Troy or something. It just there's so many like deep connections that you can really do with these guys. So what other things are you thinking like on a sort of hobby collecting side, Ethan?
I think we'd be shouted at for not mentioning Teclis's model.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of positives to the Teclis model.
There's like, I mean, it's not really big enough a negative for me to put in the like negative section, but like Teclis model, right? I love the mount. I love the stone face. I love the wings. It's so
imposing figure. Everything about it, the regalness as well. It just captures the Lumineth perfectly, I think.
Even in their creatures, it catches it. The only thing I don't like about Teclis is his pose. It's not like the model I don't like, it's just the pose.
It looks like he's diving into a pool of water.
Looks like he's diving into a pool of water, looks like a genie. Really kind of like impractical for transporting. Why couldn't he just be sitting on it? I mean, I know he looks more, dynamic like this instead of if he was just sat on a throne, but I don't, or just have him on the back. Like, yeah, I'm not a fan of Teclis. But I'm a fan of the other thing that is... it is mentioned in the name, to be fair. Selenar? Spirit of Haish?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so I was going to say, I'm a fan of the thing that's not mentioned in the title, but it is mentioned in the title, so that's fine. And the base is lovely. But yeah, I've already seen people do conversions of Teclis in a different pose, so it's like...
You have options. It's not end-all.
Exactly. He's a lovely model. The cows, I know some people are split on, but I know if you...
I'll say that now. Hot take. I think they're great.
The cows are really, really quite cool.
Once you understand the lore, you'll understand why the cows are a necessary force.
Yeah.
I think.
I think that's it. And I think, like, when I first saw them, I was a bit unsure, if I'm honest. But I was also a little bit like that with some of the Ostrich Bone Reaper stuff, and now they really grew on me, and the cows are growing on me over time. But yeah, really nice model range. Also the Dawn Riders, absolutely lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely, like easily one of my favourite models in the range as a unit. Maybe potentially my favourite.
I think it sneaks into most people's top 2 at least.
Yeah, because they're just so encapsulating, aren't they? And also, it's just nice to see horses, like not monstrous beasts and stuff.
Amazing in high fantasy. Any sort of fantasy game, Cab always catches my eye.
It does, and it's not a massive Juggernaut or Gore Grunter or Dracoff or whatever. It's just nice to see just normal Cab, really. And you've got the light of Elfarion and stuff, and there's so many that we can go into. But so essentially, the model range is very nice. At the most part, there's a few things I don't like. Like I said, Teclis. I think the Stone Guard, I quite like them. I haven't got a problem with the Earls of Hammers at all. But I just wish the Stone Guards, like either their helmet to not have the big cow on top, or just the helmets be a bit shorter with the cow.
It's just the cows need to shrink a little bit. They just take up too much top-heavy space, or at least what I imagine to be a bit top-heavy. Like they're sort of always going to be falling backwards with this up there.
Yeah, I do agree. One thing I do love about the unit, though, that banner with the white cow on it, the white ball.
Amazing.
Yeah,
awesome.
Really.
So, just brilliant.
Really nice. So essentially, a long way of saying it, but the model range is really nice. Nice to paint as well. What I would say is, and this is something me and Ethan mentioned as well before we did the video, is that don't be put off by painting them. Don't think, you need to be a high-level painter or something to paint these guys to do it justice. To be honest, if you use contrast, and I know contrast isn't the answer to everything, but it will make these guys a lot quicker to paint. If you just want to get them like tabletop, and I don't mean saying that in a bad way, but I just mean like getting them painted to a good, basic level, what you're happy with, a good standard. It's not as hard as it looks. What I will say as a caveat to that, though, is that if you do want to make them look immaculate, like as well as they are painted on the boxes, it will take a very long time. But they will still look good even if you don't put all that much time in. Is that a fair thing to say, Ethan?
I feel like you have to sort of do them. You have to take the plunge sometimes when you see models you really like and you want to get that effect. You're just going to have to practice, and you have to paint the models to practice. So don't be too put off. There's a lot of tutorials out there I've seen, especially from Warhammer and TV itself, that take you through step by step, colour by colour, on how to get these guys looking great.
Exactly, and that's really it. And not saying I'm a really good painter and stuff, but when I've recently painted, put up some Sinesh stuff and everything else, I've had people ask me like, oh, you know, how'd you paint? Like, a big thing I get is they wish like they could get like a white as like smooth and as clean as my one. And all I say is that literally is just practice. Like, I don't particularly think I'm an amazing painter, but it's nice when you hear things like that, and really it's just practice. And a lot of it is practice / all like painting hacks. When you learn certain things, it's like, I don't know, if you're painting white, never spray the thing black. You know, little things like that. So yeah, cool. So then sort of talking more about the strengths on the table, where do you kick us off then, Ethan? What are the strengths of these guys? What do they do well?
They hold points and defend very, very well. The Wardens are just amazing at holding the line. They have some great rules to get -1s to hit, rerolling 1s to save, adding 1s to their save with Aether Quartz. There's just many ways of making these guys almost unshiftable. That makes them so strong, and that's just your battle line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, me and Ethan actually played a game on TTS the other day, and I was running Slave's Darkness against his Lumineth Realm-Lord army he had, and I charged a block of 10 of these guys with 5 Chaos Knights. And I'm not saying the Chaos Knights are whatever they charge they wipe out, but bloody hell, they were tied it down for like the entire game, just against 10 of them.
Once they'd killed their initial 5 and were stuck in that combat, they were staying there.
Yeah, like, I didn't even kill a lot of them on the charge, and I had a Runebringer battalion to try and do extra more. Like, these guys are a solid shield wall battle line. They really are. And yeah, like I say, they do things very defensively, so they can have the defensive lines and the shield walls and everything of the Wardens, and then you can have, like you did in that game, you had your Sentinels behind that can do a ton of mortal wounds. Like,
mortal wound output of this army is second to none, I think.
Yeah.
Just getting them out on the board.
Like, if done really well, like ridiculously powerful, the mortal wound. Particularly how you were fighting my army that most things had a 5-up, if not a 6-up save against mortal wounds.
Yeah.
If I didn't have any save, like, poor, like, bloody hell, that's strong.
Yeah, they'd have cut you in half, I think. And that's really the strength, is they have that ranged threat. They're not always going to be stuck in a corner, because you can just shoot a lot of threat units off the table. You can consistently get around, with a squad of 20 Sentinels, you can get around sort of 5 to 10 mortal wounds on a target from 30 inches away per turn. Yeah. And that's just with the one squad. You're going to see a lot of opponents getting very flustered by that speed, I think, of damage.
Yeah, I can see the Sentinels as like an easy option to include in this army.
It's almost a no to include, I think. I'm not going to see many armies without Sentinels.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, something we can't forget to mention is that all, if not most, of the units in this army are actually wizards.
I think all of them are.
All of them are.
Let me just double check the Stone Guard. Oh, maybe not the Stone Guard, but I think everything bar the Stone Guard and some of the Stone Constructs.
Yeah, like the big cows.
I think one of the big cows cast, the other one doesn't.
Okay, but anyway, so like most of the units are wizards, and they all have their own unique spell. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Power of Haish, the Speed of Haish, but the Power of Haish is one where you can cast it multiple times in the same phase, and that basically allows your Wardens and your Sentinels to do mortal wounds on hit rolls of 5s, as well as just the normal 6s mortal wounds to hit, which just doubles the output of mortal wounds for that unit, and it creates insane amount of damage on the table.
Yeah, and like if you've only got a couple of unbinds in your army, you're going to find it really hard to try and stop the enemy's magic going off. And obviously, talking about wizards, we cannot not talk about the big man. Even he's called the Archmage Teclis. He is I mean, I'm sure if I've got this bit wrong, and someone's going to let me know the lore, but I'm pretty 100% sure this guy is a proper elven god.
He is a god.
Yeah,
he's the god of light, twinned with Tyrion.
Yeah, like, you know, this guy has created 2 whole ranges, 2 huge armies I didn't have Teepkin and the Lumineth Realm-Lords. Like he is the shit basically, and he is. Well, actually, I was going to explain it, but I know you've rolled the dice for him before, so I'll let you explain what this guy can do.
Yeah, I think he does reflect a lot of that godhood, especially with his mortal wound output. He's got Storm of Searing White Light, where every unit within 18 inches of the caster, on a 2-4 they take D3, and on a 5+ it's D6. That is nuts. The amount of mortal wounds you can take against an enemy's offensive force is second to none in any book, I think. And he also grants protection of Teclis. So if cast on a within his sort of aura, on a 5+, a wound or mortal wound is negated, so he makes your guys even more durable. With the ability to also then choose the value of his casts, so I think it's 1 automatic, 2 at 12, 4 at 10. He's never going to have to, have those whiff rolls with him. He gets these casts out every turn.
Yes, and the other thing I want to say is that where there's like, that's all well and good, but Nagash gets +3 to cast, so like Nagash could like +3 to cast and unbind, so Nagash could like out unbind him. It's like, right, okay, I don't know how many armies you're finding in that have like a Nagash or an Arcan or a Lord maybe in those
also,
odd gates.
It's not confirmed, right? I know he has the +3, but if you choose 2 at a 12, he has to roll a 10 to unbind them. If I'm getting that right, or does he have an automatic unbind? I'm not too familiar with Nagash.
Oh no, he doesn't have. No. I'm just saying it because he gets the +3. Like, where like for example, if you say like you automatically get 2 off on a 12, you could have someone counter that and go like, well, Nagash could get a 15 to unbind, and it's like, right, okay, well.
Yeah, but that's rare.
That's exactly. Don't So I've heard people down talk Teclis because, well, maybe it'd be better if he just got +3. But the automatic especially when you can do one automatic, if you just need one spell to go off.
Automatic unbindable. It's such a strong ability. Yeah, that one thing you need to get done. Maybe it's a Searing White Light. Maybe it's a protection.
Maybe it's someone teleporting 40 Marauders into you. Like just. Exactly, but just getting that one thing off, it's huge. Stopping that one thing going off can be really big, which is great.
It's also cheap, I think, for such a sort of large. We've seen Archeon, reach 800 points.
Yes.
Teclis is 660. Just over a quarter of your force is this god.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how close he is to Illyrio and how much better he is than Illyrio.
It's upsetting for the poor Sylvaneth players to see Teclis roam around at 660 doing what he does.
It's just like the connection is so strong of an Elven god versus an Elven god. But he is very effective for his points. I would be quite if I had to fight them a lot and I was fighting against someone who, let's say they've been playing with Lumineth Realm-Lords and particularly with Teclis for like 6 months and they're like, 100% competitive, that sort of chap like at a tournament or something, I would be worried. Like Teclis, especially in a very powerful Lumineth army, is quite hard to deal with. There are ways you can, but like if you haven't built your list to deal with it and you've happened to have gone across it and you have some magic in your army but not loads, you're probably not really going to get your spell you need to get off. Or like for example, if I was Flesh Eater Courts and I use my trying to remember the name of it now, maybe Ferocious Hunger, don't know, that was it, but the Archregent spell to give D3 extra attacks basically to a Terrorgeist essentially, you can just go, no, you're not getting that spell. And it's like, I have some other good spells, but that was really the one I wanted to get off. So obviously, your opponent, let's say you're playing the Lumineth and your opponent was the other guy, they would do all their bad spells first to try and tempt you to unbind. But like we both know, you would just save and wait for the best one. He is. I think the best thing about this is he is apart from his pose, we've talked about that. He is a cool model. He is a very big centerpiece, a lovely addition to your collection, and such an impactful character in the lore. And he actually works.
The army himself.
Yeah, he works in the army himself.
Yeah, he works very well in the army. And also, like, to get to Teclis, you have to go through the wardens that he's buffing the durability of. He's buffing their casts. He's making them so tough to get through. And he's standing back there laughing at you, shooting mortal wounds at you. It's very, very intimidating.
Yeah, like, I think the only way I managed to wipe out one of your units of 10 wardens on the charge is because I had 10 mortal wounds them on the charge. And that was like, there was a lot of things involved, including good dice rolling to do that. So, like, and then that's like the only way how I managed to get to Teclis before he killed a lot of stuff. Yeah, so, and what I would say is that he's not a slouch in combat. I wouldn't be using him in combat unless you have to, and that's
Don't
not.
throw him into a combat thinking he's gonna just wipe the thing out and then stand there laughing, because he can take damage, and when he does, his abilities get worse. His aura of Selenar goes down, and that hurts your army. So you don't want him taking wounds.
You want him kind of in the centre of your block, don't you? Really?
Yeah, he can hold his own in combat, but you don't want him there.
Yeah, cool. So I think what we've talked a lot about the Lumineth and like in the sense of their magic and stuff. And the funny thing is, if your opponent has a lot of wizards in their army, your Lumineth Teclis army is going to do lots of mortal wounds to the wizards, which is that's how it works roughly, isn't it? Like, I remember there was a thing. So like, you know, even the enemy can try and do some spells, probably not for too much longer. So the other thing I want to mention is, because we talked about very defensively, and you know how you can have your defensive wardens shielding your sentinels and your Teclis and whoever's casting spells. Well, I want to talk more about the sort of like outrider units, if you like, the flanking units and the sort of more combat orientated ones. Yeah, and I will just say that the wardens, they weren't a slouch in combat either. Like, you know, they can do work.
Yeah. They just need to be charged to be activated. That's kind of how they go. They fight back. They don't fight first.
So we've got. Let's talk about the next step up. And like we said, we're not reviewing war scrolls and stuff here, but let's just get a rough idea for the Stone Guard. No, they are the elite infantry, although they all feel elite, but they are the elite of the elite infantry for the Lumineth Realm-Lords. And how would you think they would play on the tabletop, Ethan?
So, with a 4-inch move characteristic, these guys are going to be quite slow to actually get up the board. And for 100 points for 5, I know they're 2 wounds, but I don't feel like they're the most useful models that you can have in your army. They do have a cool sort of tectonic shifting ability to push units back in the combat phase, which can mean the difference between capping an objective and sort of keeping your opponent off one. But they're a little bit underwhelming, I think, for 100 points for 5, being, I think, the most expensive to run as a squad of 10.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a case of this army has a lot of very powerful stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And then if a unit's not very powerful, where is it fitting in? Like, you could just take more of the better stuff, can't you?
Yeah, if they don't hit the same value set by Wardens and Sentinels, you often find yourself a little bit useless.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe a unit of just one unit to try and be tactical and push people off.
Yeah, helpful for pushing people away, for just being an irritation unit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's them. Like I say, we're sort of like briefly looking at these things. Obviously, you've got things like the Dawn Riders for being your very fast-moving units. Like, you can, wherever you read in the
aggression.
Yeah.
In terms of aggression, your 2 units in terms of sort of going out there and doing some damage. The Light of Eltharion can really pick up those sort of 5-wound heroes. He's great versus heroes. He's got buffs to fight heroes. He's got a 3-up unrendable save. He's gonna go into that fight and he's gonna win it. Yeah, he's got exploding 6s. He can choose at the start of combat, I think, to add 1 to the damage against a hero for his sword. So you get D3 plus 1, which is a lot more reliable than D3.
Yeah, and he's a great model as well, isn't he? He's obviously
brilliant.
the ghost one and stuff. Like, how they've managed to make it work is cool. Yeah, and he's nice. Like I say, he can be quite a good anti-hero as well. I've actually fought one of these on the tabletop, but it was an ally in a Deep King army. And essentially what it did is it like charged a block of 40 chain rafts, and it just didn't die, despite the bucket load of attacks I was trying.
3-up is just ridiculous. You get Mystic Shield on him. Obviously, you have infinite casts in this army, so it's very easy to power him up through those casts. So he's just a great sort of hero that can dish a lot more than your opponent would expect, I think, from a sort of 7-wing model.
100%, without a doubt. So you got him, and then like I say, you got your Dawn Riders to be a fast unit, as like no matter what you read in their war scroll, I think they can move up to like 28 inches if you get spells off and stuff.
Reading the war scroll, they move 14, you might be confused how they get to 28. That's because of the Law of Heesh having Speed of Heesh as a cast, which doubles their move characteristic. So these guys get to run 28 inches up the board, and they can pick off a sort of weaker screening unit or just anything you need, get something off an objective, steal away a character even if it's not protected well.
Yeah, right.
They're a threat.
Yeah, they're not just one of these cheap fast units that are just going to run everywhere. They can't fight. They can fight. Yeah. Which is and in this army where, like you say, you're very defensive play, you need to have a fast unit. So otherwise you're just going to let the opponent control the board. Because like you say, your sentinels are great, right? And more than likely you're going to do so much more wounding out of that your opponent's going to be furious. But if you really do muck up your shooting, your opponent's just going to dominate the board, and there's not really anything you can do much about it. So not just saying like, oh, well, the Dawn Riders are going to ride out and then just smash whatever the opponent has on the board. No, but they can just be like board control.
They can be more irritating than that, I think.
Exactly.
Especially just throwing 5 bodies onto a point and then clearing the point with mortal wounds from your sentinels.
Yes.
A great way of just annoying your opponent and forcing him to have to sort of change his battle plan halfway through.
Yeah, and then we've got the big. I know you've got like the character big cow monster, and then you've got like the normal one. But what I will say, they're sort of like your typical big monsters, aren't they? That do high damage. But unfortunately, they are good, but they're probably what, 12 wounds, right? Presumably.
They're a little stronger than that. They do have 14 wounds and a 3 up armor save. They are a strong unit, but this army gets so many buffs to being defensive and compact. It's hard to throw a big offensive monster into this and have it feel like it's,
benefiting from the synergies and everything.
Yeah. But it's a strong model, and it's going to deal damage when it's on the board. And it can cast. I think it can cast unless something crazy.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, like, now knowing that they've got the 3-up save, although you're not going to be in range of your synergies and stuff for what it may benefit from, it kind of sounds like they can take care of themselves a little bit. So I think having one of these in your army isn't a bad idea. And the other thing with it is it's you put this on the board, it's going to be, if you got him in your army and Teclis, the enemy are probably going to look at this big shiny cow and go, that thing needs to die, even if really they should be targeting everything at Teclis.
Oh, well, I think the problem with putting them both in the army is that that's 1,000 points of 2 models. Right. Straight up, I think if you take the Spirit of the Mountain with Teclis, that actually adds up to exactly 1,000. Yes. Okay. Which I think that would be a problem. I think it's the decision between, and this is why lots of people don't take them, because it's the decision between Teclis and these large cow constructs.
Right.
So tends to take that edge because of his utility.
But if you want to be cool and different, you want to take one of the big cows.
They do look cool. They look great. The guy with the 2 hammers. And the guy with the big hammer, they are gonna hit face.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be hit by that mallet. It's whatever you guys want to take. Like Teclis is like the easy go-to. But you can include one of you can build your army however you want. But we are talking like sort of like what is the most sort of like competitive sort of standpoint. And I really think, is there any other strengths you want to mention for the army? Because I think we've covered a lot.
It's an outside strength for the army. It's not really how they perform on the table, but it's a new range, and I feel like there's more to come, especially in this elemental idea. And a lot of people have already been sort of discussing this, like whether they're going to add like fire-inspired warriors, water-inspired warriors, and just incorporate this idea of the realm giving back to the soldiers, and the soldiers sort of devoting themselves to the realm.
What I would say is that sounds fantastic. I can see how they could do that. That'd be really cool. The Iron Jaws, though, that came out a little while ago with a very small model range, I haven't had an update with any extra models. So but I understand there's more leeway with the Lumineth Realm-Lords, unless it's even newer and shinier. That doesn't necessarily mean that it won't get more models at some point. But so at some point in the future.
I think that the Lumineth do have a bigger part in the story that GW is currently expanding. I think, especially when you start looking at like Broken Realms, like the idea of the realms you know, having to work together to beat back the forces of chaos, the Lumineth are going to play a part in that, especially in future updates.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, the Angels are as well, right? They're team
Probably,
players.
I don't know too much about them.
Do you know Orcs and 40k?
Yes.
Kind of the same, but no guns. Right. Okay.
Do you know?
Pun?
I do not want to read the comments after you said that.
Yeah, you're allowed to generalise Orcs. It's okay. Cool. And then sort of now mainly talking about their weaknesses. And to be honest, we sort of mentioned that as we went through their strengths as well. Like an inherent one, like as far as I'm aware, they don't have like deep striking in the army without allying like eels and stuff. But like you're not, and that hero who can make them come from a board edge, but you're not going to get that focused into that. So that is that's a big weakness. But as we talked about, the Dawn Riders are how fast they can be, although they don't fly. That can kind of make up on it.
It does. I think it does make up for it. I don't think they need to have everything. Often lots of armies get criticised for being good at everything.
Yeah, I'd agree, because this army, after going against it, I was sort of when you're going through your turns and stuff, I was like, this army it's really good. It's like it almost felt like sometimes that it was a case of what can I do to stop all these things going off, or what? But and then when I before I moved quite heavily up the board towards your main defensive block, I was like, just to confirm, you don't have any teleporting, and you were like, no, I don't. And it's like, is there ways to put teleporting in? And you're like, you're pretty sure there isn't. And I was like, okay, there's like an inherent weakness. That's fine. Yeah. Otherwise,
you sort of relaxed a bit as a player when you realise nothing's coming in the back door.
Because if you could just or even this deep strike, like a really cheap unit of 5, like like the Canary for the Daughters of Cain, the like harpy looking unit. If you could just deep strike that on a back objective I've left, while you're shooting the crap out of me and you're getting all your spells off and you're just not dying, it's like
you can't really turn things around that need to be on the front.
I wouldn't want to fight them if I'm honest. But that's not the problem. But the problem for them is they don't have the teleport. But no, like we say, so it is kind of fair enough. The biggest weakness for myself of why I would collect them is, in all honesty, the price. This is like I said, there's lots of cool things about this army, but I'm completely honest with you, this is a ridiculously costed army. And of course, if you have enough money and you really like them, and you have enough money to go, this isn't expensive, absolutely fair enough, and that's your opinion, and maybe you should donate some money to charity.
At that point, I'd say, what stops you from getting them? If you can afford them, get them.
Exactly, but I think most people can see they're quite expensive. The only things I would say, when I saw prices for this army coming out, and then I saw the prices for the big cows, and I was like, oh, that seems reasonable for a GW. Why have they been given a reasonable price? And then everything else is okay, the Archmage Teclis, right? He broke the Games Workshop £100 limit. And what do I mean by that? So I mean that for Age of Sigmar, for Games Workshop, I know you got Forge World, but just talking about Games Workshop itself, Archaon was the most expensive model at 100 points, right? That's right, £100, right? And then he beats it by £5. And then as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, this is kind of feels like a dangerous era we're going into now, where Games Workshop is testing the water, or seeing if they can charge more than £100 for a model. And don't get me wrong, if Teclis is worth £105 to you, or whatever the money is in your currency, that's absolutely fair enough. I'm just talking on the standpoint of how Games Workshop has raised its prices over the years. So he was £105, and then when I saw that, I was like, and I was thinking, God, if they've gone over £105, maybe within the next 2 years, we'll see Games Workshop selling models from Games Workshop stores for £120. There we go. The Giants came out, and then they already beat me to the 2-year estimation. It was more like maybe 2 months, maybe.
Yeah, they really are sort of trying to snake in those extra profits, I think.
Yeah, and I don't want to stick and talk about this throughout the video, but I really feel like I can't talk about Iron of Deacon, that was the other one.
Something without mentioning it.
Yeah, the Lumineth Realm-Lords without mention, because I mean, like, you're talking like, so if I look at the Stone Guard, right, £36.50 for 5 models, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's people out there who can find loads of examples of going, well, these models are really expensive for the, for how many, yeah, they are probably. You're absolutely right, and like I say, if you can afford, absolutely. Do you guys? That's absolutely fine, because they are, very cool and everything else. But I just think, for a lot of people, I don't see how they are that price when you could probably get 10 Liberators for that kind of price. If we're talking about plastic.
Especially in the sort of White Play series, like it's going to be newer sort of players, or at least newer to this faction players. It's like, what's stopping them from really getting into this and getting their feet stuck in? It will be the price tag at the end of the day.
You've hit it on the head, Ethan, with that, because like I say, the idea of these videos is, of course, you may be in the hobby for ages. You might have been playing Fantasy, or you might have been playing Age of Sigmar since start, and this may not be the first army you're looking about ever doing. But I know there's plenty of people who watch these videos, as I've seen from comments and everything else, that this is like their entry point into the game by choosing their first army, and it's important to note that especially if you're looking at, say, you're not going Age of Sigmar is an army I definitely want to do. It's like, I want to try it out a little bit, like I've been with 40k. I want to try it out a bit. I wouldn't go for this army because it's just too expensive. You need to be all in, and I'm not saying like if you're all in, anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that you need to know this is the army you want to. Because like £36.50. If you look at the Dawn Riders, I mean, £39.50. I mean, that it's just
80 quid for a squad of 10. That's a bit.
It's like when I see Furniture Village adverts, right, and they go like, this new double bed for under, like, I don't know, £400, and it's £399, like, and 99p. Honestly, can you claim it under that? These guys are just under 40 quid. Like,
they're £40. I mean, you just round it up, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and what I would say about these guys, as I said, they are my favourite models from this. Bar the mount for Techless, they are my favourite models for this army. Okay, and I haven't built any, but what I've heard from most people who have built them is that the mould lines are really bad, and they're such a pain to put together. Like to the point where they're harder to put together than some models that came out about 10 years ago. Now I haven't built them, so I don't know if that's true. But I've heard that from multiple different people who like don't know each other. So it's not some grand conspiracy, if you like. So, and I know if I paid that for these models, I would be pissed.
Yeah, you'd want that quality of life from expensive models.
Yeah.
So you can just get them built, painted, and get them looking good, quick. And if you spend ages with your sort of hobby knives and things, getting those mod lines out, it's just going to be a bit demoralising because you've dropped that much money for 5 models. Exactly,
and it's not a case of let's say I'm having to spend a while getting rid of mould lines and using my knife to trim bits and stuff on, let's say, some skeleton warriors, okay, where, oh, fuck, I've accidentally trimmed a bit of the sword. Now it's got like a big, rip in its sword or something like that, there's a big chunk missing. It's a skeleton warrior, its sword's broken, that's fine.
Yeah.
These guys, how detailed they are, not fine. Like,
and
but
also how clean their story is and their aesthetic is. They want to look the best, so when you sort of make those mistakes or have those things snap off, that can be really, really demoralising.
Agreed. So yeah, you've got that. I actually know a friend of mine, Jamie, who you will know from the Slate of Darkness videos I'm doing, and he did the Blades of Corn and the Deepkin video with me, I believe. He loves the Lumineth Realm-Lords, right? He bought that box when it came out in June or July, whenever it was, and he absolutely loved them. And he was like, I really shouldn't do another army, but I am going to do another army. I'll do it. And he bought the box and stuff. And then, because of how Games Workshop has slowed down its releases with the pandemic, essentially, they didn't release the rest of the army to buy until a couple months later in September. And then they released the rest of the army to buy, and then everyone saw the prices, and then he was just like, I can't do this army, and I've just bought into them, so that's a pain.
Yeah, That kind of sucks. The fact they released the box before announcing the prices, it was a little bit sly.
Yeah, and I mean, but what I would say as a caveat to the fact that that box exists is that you may find people who go, it's not the army for me, and I bought, 2 boxes or whatever, and you may find that they're not just trying to make crap loads of profit and then sell second-hand Lumineth Realm-Lords already at a reasonable price. Like I saw someone selling a Techless, for example, on Facebook. Don't get me wrong, it's sold very quickly, but someone selling Techless and his mount, that model, for 65 quid. Like, that is the cheapest I've ever seen it, but it means that it's possible that there may be something like that again. Like, if you keep your eye out, you may be able to find some of them.
Every little helps, I think, when it comes to this army.
Yeah.
Every little bit of cost you can shave off will help you collect this army in the long run.
I know I've got Games Workshop on the screen, but that's just so I can easily look through the units and stuff. But don't buy from Games Workshop, like this army at all. Like, I generally say don't buy anyway from Games Workshop, but especially for this army.
If you can find these models at a cheaper price, this is a great army, I think. And it's quite easy for newer players because there's lots of things about positioning in AOS that can get quite overcomplicated and a little bit confusing. But here you have your defensive line, you have your second line, you can sort of understand it from other games like Total War
Exactly.
or 40k. There's just easier ways to get into, this faction.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, I know mainly the negative we talked, just talking about the price, but for me, that's the main negative.
That's it, really, I think.
That is like the only, like, negative. For me, my things are, like, everything to do with death and Slaves to Darkness. Like, they're my go-to, and I'm not looking at doing another army anyway, so I wouldn't do these guys, but let's say the future is endless, and if I look to do another army at some point, if these guys weren't that price, I would look at doing them. So,
yeah, I'd say if you're like on the edge, keep your eye out for future battle boxes or some good deals from somewhere.
And just have your eye on eBay. And if you're not on one of those buy, sell, and swap pages on Facebook, definitely get on that. 100%. I mean, don't get me wrong, if Games Workshop ever want to sponsor me, I will tell people to buy from here. But until that day, buy from anywhere else. Personally, I like using Darksphere. I think that can be quite good. And I'm not sponsored by them either. Again, if they would like to sponsor me, I'm open to anything. So, is there any other sort of weaknesses you want to talk about these? Oh, I just say, as like Sentinels and stuff, they're great, but like as any other shooting, if you're using these guys to be your damage output, right? As soon as your Sentinels get charged by something, let's say maybe 40 Marauders teleport behind you. If I just pluck an example out of thin air, Ethan.
Yep, carry on.
Yep. As soon as you can bog these guys down, so they can only shoot what they're in combat with, that now your damage dealer unit, being your Sentinels, that the enemy's bogged down, cannot do what it needs to do for a turn or two.
The Sentinels are only as good as what's defending them. And that's why Wardens are so good, because they're so good at defending. The Sentinels are great at doing their own damage on top of that. Exactly.
So you've got to make sure that the enemy can't deep strike behind you. Like, as pretty as your front wall may look, and let's say it's quite far forward, because like, I've got a defensive thing going on. I don't want to be right at the back of the board, because I feel like I won't be able to claim any objectives. I want to be kind of centered. You've got to, bear in mind that as a weakness for this army.
I think it's also worth mentioning on a final point that if you do want to try this army out and try their rules out, Tabletop Simulator is a brilliant way to sort of try these things out, try different army compositions, and see whether you truly like their playstyle before making the investment plunge.
Exactly. Like, honestly, I can't recommend Tabletop Simulator enough. Like,
Neither.
I mean, I played a few games in the summer, which I really enjoyed, but during this like second lockdown, because like I haven't properly gamed on a table for ages. Like, and I'm sure like most other people, apart from the lucky buggers in Australia or New Zealand, Tabletop Simulator for £15. I think I've had 6 or 7 games in the last few weeks, and obviously that's dependent. If you're working at the moment, you're probably working twice as much as usual, so you can't. But if you basically are being told to stay at home and you haven't really got much else to do, and you've got a computer that doesn't even need to be that powerful to run the game, definitely get on it.
Yeah, for sure. You can get at least a couple of games a week in, which is completely worth it from the 0 games you may currently be playing. Yeah,
and it's and it will also mean that when you get back to be able to play games again, your first game isn't scratching your head the whole time going, like, I'm talking if you're a fairly experienced player, your first game isn't scratching your head the whole time going like, oh, remember for a second. I haven't actually played for about 8 months. How does the game work again? And also, to be honest, as a beginner, I mean, like in my Discord, you're welcome to join, like I mentioned at the start of the video. We've got a few new people to Age of Sigmar as well, who are sort of taking through and learning through the steps. So it's a good place to learn, and it's a good place to test and learn armies you would like to do that could be the Lumineth Realm-Lords. Alternatively, if you don't have TTS and stuff, and this can be said like after the lockdown, as long as your opponent's cool with it, just proxy the army for a couple of games until you get a feel for it. Because I know like this isn't something that I've sort of like really nailed down on when I've done my other wide plays of proxying armies and testing them out on TTS, but just because of the price of this one, I feel like it's necessary for me and Ethan to mention this. Like before you make the plunge, because I say this is an army that you really kind of want to do.
Yeah, it's a very feels good army. I think it looks brilliant and it performs brilliant. You just need to sort of make sure it's what you want before you start making the big investments.
Yeah, exactly. So with that aside, essentially, why play Lumineth Realm-Lords? And that is, if you want an army that has a really cool model range, it's also very new, it's got a very cool lore, and also if you kind of miss an army from the world that was, it's going to be a great fit for you. And if you just love running a god on the table who's actually going to do a decent job, I think that pretty much summarises it, to be honest.
Yeah, you said it all there, I think. And they've got a very bright future, I think, in AOS.
Exactly. And what I would say with that, as I understand, to be honest, like some of these videos are longer than others, if I do them with other people, but I feel like we've done a nice level now. If I just have a look, I can see, yeah, it was gone on for like roughly an hour now, so that's long enough, to be honest. But if you do want to know more about them, like I say, I will do a series at some point in the future. But in the meantime, check out things like the Honest Wargamer. They always do like good rundowns and very competitive stuff. Warhammer Weekly, that sort of thing. But like what I can say is, if you do want to see some, or just hear some really good narrative for these guys, that's all canon. Everything else, please listen to 2+ Tough, because he has done a series on these guys, and
it's a 5-part series detailing everything from the start of the Lumineth to where they stand now. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it really is great. So with that, guys, what I want to say is, if you did enjoy this video, please smash that like button, that subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure you click the notification button if you haven't, as that all really helps the channel out, and it's absolutely free for you guys to do so. And if you found this video found that video helpful, it will help YouTube know that this is a video to recommend to other people. And I also want to do a massive shout out to my patrons, who, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to produce these videos. So they know who they are, and they do an enormous job at supporting the channel. And then the other thing I want to say is a massive thank you to you, Ethan, for joining me on this video and talking through all of the things and goodies and stuff for the Lumineth Realm-Lords.
Yeah, no problem. I really enjoyed this.
That's good. And what I would say is, this is like the first time Ethan has done a not just joined me for a YouTube video, but has done a YouTube video in total. And I think he's done a very good job, especially talking about this army. So thank you very much for all your sort of like experience and sort of like things you've read into this army. It's been great to hear that, because I think when you get two people's perspective on an army, you get a more balanced video, if you like. Particularly, like I say, I don't play this army. I've just fought it once. So no, it is good. So yeah, like I say, massive thank you for watching this. Massive thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to become a patron and support the channel, so I'll link to it at the top of the description down below. And until then, guys, all I really have to say to you is, remember until next time to stay safe, stay hygienic, wear a mask, wash your hands, all that sort of thing. And of course, remember that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.